Hello, and welcome back to Heart and Health Wellness. I'm your host, Dr. Melissa Welch, and I'm so glad that you are here. If this is your first time tuning in, I just want to say welcome. This is a podcast where we talk all about how to improve and better your overall whole person health and wellness. We take a biopsychosocial spiritual framework to talk about each of those different domains of your health, and today we're going to talk all about how resistance to change can be a very common experience and make it difficult for you to become that version of yourself that you want to be, or to implement those changes that you've been working really hard to do. So, real quick, a recap from last week. We talked about really small changes that you could make in order to have big, lasting impacts on your health and wellness. And I provided a few examples of some of those little changes that you could make. And I hope some of you actually tried to implement those. And I would be really curious to hear from you how that went, what you did, and what you experienced with that practice and that change over the last week. If that's you, go ahead and drop it in the comments or send me an email to let me know how that's going. I want to hear from you. So today we are going to talk about resistance to change, which is sometimes an uncomfortable thing to talk about because, well, we want to be the people who can implement change, and saying that we're experiencing resistance suggests that maybe we're not doing our part, or maybe we're not doing as well as we wanted to do. And so there's some level of defeat that we have to admit if we're experiencing resistance to doing the thing that we set out to do. However, I want to encourage you today to be open-minded to the thought that maybe resistance is something that is very natural and normal, and that most people, if not everyone, experiences in their lives when they're going through a change. And so you aren't that unique or special or different when you are experiencing this phenomenon. So just know you're in good company. I experience it too. And so today's episode has been just as helpful to me as I've prepared for it, as I hope it is for you listening to it or watching it. So let's go ahead and talk about it. So I want you to think to yourself real quick, when was the last time that you felt really excited about making a change and then you lost steam within a few days of actually trying to make that change happen? It could have been recently. We've talked a lot about some different things that you can implement in your life to be healthier and achieve better wellness on this show. So if you've been keeping up, maybe you were trying to do one of those things and started out really great for the first day or two, and then by day 3 and 4, you're going, I don't really need to do that. When was the last time that you experienced that kind of loss of momentum? Now, when you're thinking about that, I want you to realize that that is a normal process. And there's lots of reasons that we as humans experience that resistance to change. And we're going to dive into that a little bit deeper so you have a better understanding of why you might be experiencing that, and then can have a bit more empathy for yourself rather than being judgmental or frustrated with yourself when you experience that resistance to change. First of all, let's talk about why there is a biological and psychological resistance to change. And first, I should explain, when I'm saying resistance to change, I mean anything that's in your body, mind, people around you, whatever, that's saying, whoa, we can pump on the brakes here. We don't need to actually do that. We don't need to actually start doing this or change the way we do that. Anything inside of you that's going, whoa, pump the brakes, that is resistance to change. Okay, so anything that's basically not on board with making that change happen and being excited about that happening. So first of all, I want to go over this idea or this concept of homeostasis. Homeostasis is kind of like a big fancy sciencey word, but essentially it refers to any individual, animal, group, system likes to stay at a constant state of rest or normal. So if we think about a lion out on the prairie, normally they're just hanging out, lounging around, but when they need to eat, they have to get up, go, and hunt for the food, catch the food, all of that. And so they exert a bunch of energy. And then once that's done, they've got their tummy full and things are good again, things are safe, they can relax and hang out on the prairie again. People are the exact same way. We like to stay at this homeostasis, our normal, and anytime something happens that increases that level of energy that we have to put into things, whether that's thinking or doing, it feels a bit uncomfortable. It exerts energy, it makes us tired, makes us think, and it's not our favorite thing to do. We want to get back on the couch, hang out, be cool. And I'm using the couch as an example, but this could go for things at your workplace, in your relationship, whatever. We like what is familiar and what is normal. So that comes to the second point of that, which is we like doing something that is familiar. Our brains like to know what to expect. And this is something that we learn, it's normal human development, that we're looking for patterns in our environment. And when we know what to expect, we feel a sense of safety or security. So anytime there's a sense of uncertainty, it feels scary. We experience fear and we don't like it. It's uncomfortable. We just don't like it. So that could be with anything. We like knowing what to expect, even if that thing isn't great, isn't leading to our best wellness or health. It's familiar, it's comfortable, we like that and we want to keep that going. That's again bringing us back to our homeostasis and what is normal. You might also experience something like perfectionism of wanting to do it just right. I like to joke that I'm a recovering perfectionist because I'm someone who really cares, whether it's good or bad, about what other people think. And I want to have a certain image. And so I like to do things a certain way at a certain level. And sometimes in the past, that has held me back from getting started. This podcast is a great example of that. It's something that I've had on my mind, on my heart for years, but because I didn't feel like I could get it just right or make it perfect, I didn't start it. So finally, I've started it. And if you're someone who's listened from episode 1 up until now, you know that there's some funny moments, some quirks and things where it wasn't just right. And that's okay. I am learning as a recovering perfectionist to let myself be new at something again, to learn and to let that be part of the process. That's really beautiful. None of us started out as experts. We've always had to learn. Watching my son as a toddler learn all these new things. For example, if you've ever watched a baby learning how to crawl or how to walk, you see this in action where they fall constantly and then they have to get back up and keep going. And their persistence is really admirable. We need to do the same thing as adults and allow ourselves to not be perfect at something and to be learners and to try even if we know it's not going to be perfect. So don't let that fear of not doing it perfectly stop you from starting. Another good example of why we might be experiencing resistance to change is because of the actual brain chemistry that is happening. When we know that something makes us feel good, it's because it releases dopamine in our brains. So for example, if I like watching trash TV, what I call it, it's mind numbing. And for some reason, sitting on the couch and watching episode after episode, it's feeding my mind with some dopamine. I know what to expect when I sit on the couch and I watch that for hours. I know what's coming from that. That feeds my brain those good chemicals, even if it would be better for me to go for a walk and get similar, if not better, dopamine releases from physical activity. However, I know that when I sit on the couch and I turn on the TV and I watch it, that is immediate. It also doesn't require me to get up and go change or anything like that. I'm not going to have to deal with taking a shower afterwards and getting ready for whatever comes next. I can just stay in this spot, watch my TV, get my dopamine hit, and then carry on with my day, even if it's not the best thing for me. So recognizing that what you are currently doing, even if it's not great, it still provides some kind of solution to your problem. And that might be that dopamine hit. I hope that makes sense. Okay, next we need to talk about the social barriers to change. Now, this is key, and I think it's a part that a lot of people miss when thinking about implementing changes into their life. especially changes that are going to be healthier for them. I'm thinking about cutting back on what you're eating. If it's not good for you, it's not nutritious, and you're trying to make better decisions. That might include not going out to restaurants as often, which might help you save some money. It might include drinking less, which if you have a group of friends that wants to go out to happy hour and all the girls are getting drinks and you're not doing that, you're rocking the boat there. When you implement changes for yourself, you are not doing so in isolation. There's a group of people around you, whether that's friends, family, spouses, children, you name it, workplaces. When you implement change, your change ripples and affects the people around you. So sometimes you'll have really wonderful people in your life who are in those different groups and they're excited for you and they want to support you. When you find those people, you need to latch onto them and hold them close because you're going to need them. But there are also other people, and they may not even mean anything bad by it, but they just don't want the boat rocked. They want things to stay the same and not have things change because they're human, and that's normal. But you have to understand, when I'm implementing a change, it's not just me that's being affected. If you're giving up smoking, but your spouse always wants you to come out and have a cigarette with them as y'all drink your coffee in the morning, if you're no longer doing that and you're not enjoying the morning with them in the same way anymore, that's going to rock the boat. If you're saying, I'm not going to be eating carbs anymore because I want to cut that out and I'm trying to lose weight, and your friends like to go to a certain Italian restaurant every week, and suddenly you're like, maybe we should try this cool salad place instead, that might rock the boat. Those are silly examples, but I want you to see how any little thing that you do can affect those around you. And it's not your responsibility to take care of them, but it is your responsibility to recognize that you're going to have to make hard choices and do things differently, even if the other people around you aren't on board with it. This is why it's so important for you to focus on why you want to make the change and not rely on other people to be behind you, pushing you forward the whole way. It's good to have those people in your life, and we're going to talk about that here in just a second, but you need to be able to have that discipline to do it on your own, even without that at all times. I hope that makes sense. So, one of the things that I do think is a good option when you're starting something new is to find a group of supporters, people who are doing the same thing as you. For example, Facebook is a wonderful place to do this. Say what you will about Facebook, that's fine. But one of the really beautiful things that Facebook does is it has this whole host of communities on there that allow you to find other people who are doing similar things as you, who can provide encouragement, share stories of success. You can share your own story of success every day, whatever it might be. Couple of examples where I've done this. So when I did the 75 hard challenge a couple years ago, I don't know if I've mentioned that on here or not. It's a really tough fitness challenge where you have to like drink so much water, work out every day, read a book. What else? I can't think. There's like 5 or 6 different things that you have to do every single day. And it's a lot. And I did it. But part of the way that I was able to do that was by joining multiple Facebook groups for people, or for women specifically, who were doing the 75 hard challenge. There's even groups that are like moms doing 75 hard challenge, or people who've softened it a certain way and doing it their own way. Find the people who can do it with you to encourage you, support you, and go along this journey with you. I think that's really, really valuable in doing that. I also did it for like breastfeeding groups of moms who are trying to make it to a certain length of time. Those are the two that stick out in my mind right now. But there's like smoking cessation groups, obviously, like any kind of substance or drug abuse stuff. There's people out there for that. There's moms in the community that you live in for finding things to do with families. Lots of options. I'll get off of that soapbox, but just know that if that person does not exist in your life currently, there are ways to find them virtually to make that happen. I want to take a moment to tell you about We Are Ama. They're a women-owned small business, and their mission is to empower moms to thrive and feel good. And they've received over 6,000 five-star reviews for their cocoon, which is a must-have for new moms. It's functional, stylish, and breathable, which is especially important for living in Florida. I absolutely loved wearing mine because it made me feel both beautiful and comfortable while I was breastfeeding in public. And even now, I still use it as a soft blanket or a stroller cover for my baby. If you're looking for the perfect baby shower gift or postpartum essential, check out the new Mama Bundle. It's packed with thoughtful items like a cocoon, herbal sitz bath, nipple balm, and more to support moms through that fourth trimester. And just for you, We Are Amma is offering 15% off your purchase. Just use the code Melissa at checkout at weareamma.com. In addition to finding a group of people, I also think there's a lot of value in finding an accountability partner. So this could be an individual that you find from that group virtually, or it could be somebody in your life, like your spouse, sibling, friend, whatever, whom you talk to on a regular basis. And this is something that we've talked about in previous episodes, but I think it's really important to have that someone that you check in with on a regular basis, whether it's daily or weekly, whatever, who can ask you, how's it going? Are you sticking to this? What's been a difficult challenge for you? So that you can answer to someone honestly, not just yourself. We are not the best at holding ourselves accountable. Some people are better than others. My personality type definitely needs someone else holding me accountable to stick to something. So if that's you, just know that's how you are and find that accountability partner. Definitely going to help you. Okay, let's talk now about how your values can directly help you and not just help you in having motivation to make this change, but also help you to picture a different version of yourself who has implemented this change. So let's say you have a value of being kind to others or just kindness in general. It might help to say, okay, if that's my value, how can I be kinder to myself during this process? What does that look like? How am I talking to myself if I'm talking kindly to myself, even when I experience challenges? And really use that value as a way to help mold and shape your approach to making that change. If you are someone who really values family time and you're currently engaging in, I don't know, shopping for 3 hours at a time on a weekend, you're away from your family, and you're like, I want to be the person who's aligned with spending time with my family. Maybe I need to let this go and go to the park instead. Let that be your example to really shape what you want to do and who you want to be, or what version of yourself is aligned with that value, and what does that version of you do. Does that make sense? I hope so. If it does, let me know in the comments so I know that I'm not crazy. Okay, so what else? Let's talk about how using a mantra can also help. So if you have a mantra related to your value that can encourage you to keep going, or if you have a certain scripture or something that you want to remind yourself, you can certainly do that. I'm going to leave you with this quote from Martin Luther King Jr. that I think is a nice way to think about making changes. He says, faith is taking the first step even when you don't see the whole staircase. So if you want to remind yourself, I know that this is going to be good for me in the long run. I know that I need to stop doing X, or I need to start doing Y. And even if I don't see that end result right now, or even if I'm not going to get that immediate dopamine release right now, I know that I can start taking just one step to make it happen. Okay, so I want you to think about all of these different pieces that make resistance to change a normal thing, how it makes change something that's hard to do, how you are a very normal, healthy, appropriate human being to experience resistance to change, and know, despite that, you can still do it. But there are certain things that you can have in place to help yourself be more successful even when you experience resistance to change. So let's talk about 4 of those very practical strategies that you can use in order to overcome resistance when it rises up inside of you. The first thing that you can do is reframe your setbacks. I want you to change how you talk to yourself when you fail or experience a setback. Okay, and if you are just listening and you can't see, I'm using quotations with those words fail and setback because It's important to recognize that how we talk about it is how we define what we're actually experiencing. So, for example, if you are trying something new. Okay, I've got a good example that I'm thinking of. One of the things that I really enjoyed doing the last couple of years is learning more and more about sourdough. I was part of the pandemic sourdough bandwagon group. Okay, so I absolutely love learning the science and the skill behind making the most wonderful sourdough loaf. It's so much fun. With a toddler, I don't get to do it as much, but when I do, I still very much enjoy it. And I actually have some going right now, so hopefully it'll turn out well. But here's the thing. The dough that I'm making today is a new recipe to me. And I actually tried it for the first time a couple of weeks ago. It's more of a sandwich loaf than one of the typical round loaves that you might see that has the big holes in it. Okay. And when I did it a couple of weeks ago, something went weird. I didn't bake it long enough and it was a little bit underbaked. I made it turn out okay. You just stick it in the toaster and it's great. So if that ever happens to you, by the way, try that and it's still delicious. But it didn't turn out quite the way I wanted to. So I could say, well, I failed at doing that, but it was a new recipe I'd never tried before. I was doing it with a toddler running around, so that's really hard. And maybe I didn't fail. Maybe I learned that the way I did it, or the step that I skipped, or the step that I rushed wasn't the best way to do that. And that's okay. It's okay to learn. So instead of saying I failed, I'm looking at what I could take away from that experience to then influence how I'm going to do it differently this time around. So today, when I'm doing it, I know not to rush this step. I know to let this part happen all the way through. And I know that when I bake it, I need to bake it a little bit longer and probably use a thermometer to make sure it's at the right temperature rather than just going based off of what it looks on the outside. So that's a silly example, but it is hopefully helpful to you to see how we talk about our experiences in the past rather than being a negative thing that we did something wrong into something that is an opportunity for us to learn and grow and do better in the future. We want to maintain that growth mindset because it presents us with an opportunity to do better in the future. And if we're talking to ourselves in a negative way, we miss out on that opportunity to learn and grow in a positive way. So that growth mindset, knowing that we can improve, is really important when we are implementing change and experiencing resistance to change. Another strategy that you can use is called the 2-minute rule. And this basically just says, ask yourself, can I do this in 2 minutes? And if so, just do it. And really what it comes down to is the simple fact that when we start something, we're more likely to continue going with that. So when we think about like energy, when you learned in school about energy continues to move, what's at rest stays at rest unless energy is applied to it, right? And once something is going, it will continue to go unless there's an energy or force that stops it. So we sometimes just need to get ourselves moving and going. And that momentum is enough to keep us moving in the right direction. So if, for example, we'll talk about earlier when I said I either want to sit on the couch and watch TV, that's real simple to do. All I have to do is pick up the remote, or I can go put on my workout clothes and go for a walk outside. Well, putting on my workout clothes is the first step of making that happen. And that takes less than 2 minutes to do. I know where my workout clothes are. I have clean ones to pick from. And so I just need to go put them on. And then once I have them on, I will probably feel, knowing myself, silly if I'm wearing workout clothes and I don't go do my workout and I have the time and ability to do it. So sometimes just putting it on is helpful. So for example, if you're someone who wants to work out in the morning, setting those workout clothes at the end of your bed or, in the bathroom, wherever it's easy to get to them in the morning, as soon as you get up, you put on the clothes. It takes less than 2 minutes to do that, and it helps you get that momentum going. Real easy rule. If it takes less than 2 minutes, just do it. Another thing that you can use is habit stacking. And I've referred to this a little bit in the past as well when we talk about doing a daily check-in or self-reflection, something like that, adding it to when you're brushing your teeth, washing your face, doing your makeup, doing your hair, whatever it might be. If you already have something that you're engaging in every single day, add on your new thing to that. So This could be your mindfulness practice. If you're wanting to engage in daily prayer, that's fine. If you're wanting to, for me right now, I'm trying to read scripture on a regular basis. If you want to have that playing while you're getting ready, doing the audiobook or something like that, whatever it might be, if there's a way to stack it on to something that you're already doing, that can be really helpful in making it a regular part of your routine as well, instead of feeling like something extra that you have to go out of your way to do. All right, one more thing that you can do is self-compassion practices. So I want you to practice talking to yourself in a kind way, but more than that, have a specific affirmation that lifts you up that you can repeat to yourself on a regular basis. Something like, I'm a work in progress, and that's okay. I'm a new learner, and that's okay. This is something I had to do a lot while I was working through my PhD program. I had gone from my master's program, actually, while I was in my master's program, I was already working in a professional space. And then after I finished my master's program, I was working as a licensed professional. I still had my associate license, but I was a licensed professional doing my job. And then I went to do my doctorate program, and I had to go back into the learner phase rather than being the expert or the professional. And that was a really hard thing to do. So I consistently had to remind myself, I'm a student again, and that's okay. I can still build upon the knowledge, skills, and tools that I've gotten over the years and be a learner. We are all learners continuously throughout our lives, whether we're in school or not. But this was a mantra that I had to tell myself over and over again. And it helped me when I was feeling frustrated with not getting the paper just right or not outlining something the correct way or whatever it might be. And I had people telling me, hey, you need to adjust it, modify it like this. And sometimes that was really hard to hear because I wanted to know that I was doing a good job. And it was important to remind myself, you're a learner. This is a new skill set that you've not had before. You're experiencing it for the first time. And that's okay. So really have some self-compassion with yourself and allow yourself to be kind in how you speak to yourself and the things that you tell yourself throughout the day and throughout your change journey. I also want to take just a quick second to talk about compassion specifically. When we think about being compassionate to others, I don't know what your personal definition of compassion is, but compassion is an action that comes from a place of empathy. So when we experience empathy, we feel the pain of someone else. We understand what they're going through or can imagine what that must be like. And so we feel, quite literally, the brain releases or it activates that part of the brain that experiences pain. We feel their pain in a very scientific way. So that's empathy. Compassion is the next step. It says, okay, I feel that pain and then I'm going to do this. The same can be said when we are having self-compassion. I understand that myself hurts knowing that I'm not doing this just right. And there's pain in knowing that I didn't get it perfect. And I'm going to encourage myself with this self-talk. I hope that makes sense. Empathy is the feeling. Compassion is the action that you're taking that follows through. It puts empathy into action. And you can do that with other people and you can do that with yourself. And it is shown in research over and over again that when we express or do compassion for others or for ourselves, it actually helps us to be more resilient and avoid things like burnout. So when you are doing something new, when you are implementing a change and you experience pain of not getting it right and you're feeling frustrated with yourself, if you can talk to yourself kindly and say, I know this change of not smoking or eating well is really, really important to you and you feel like you messed up. Instead of saying you're so stupid and you're a failure and I'm disappointed in you for not doing it right or perfectly this whole time, and instead say, I'm proud of you for trying. I'm proud of you for making changes. I'm proud of you for the person that you're turning into, and show yourself that compassion. You're less likely to burn out. And so you're more likely to be able to follow through with the change that you're trying to make and experience success in the long run. So it seems like a small thing, but it's actually a really important thing to do. And just like we talked last week, those small things add up. So if you can show yourself that compassion, it's going to be really, really helpful. Okay, so that's what I wanted to talk today. It's not a super long, complex thing, but it is important to recognize that one, resistance to change, totally normal human experience. You are not weird. There's not something wrong with you. That's just what happens when we try to change things. Two, you can use biological, psychological, social, and spiritual tricks, techniques to make sure that you are headed in the right direction. And even when you experience resistance to change, there's ways that you can work around that. Okay, so as a reminder, knowing that it's normal, talking to yourself the right way, including other people in your life that are going to be helpful, recognizing that some people aren't going to be on board and that's okay, finding a way to align it to your values and finding a way to picture that future version of yourself and asking what they do. And then those techniques that we just talked about here at the end, all of those things can help you overcome resistance when it happens, because it will happen. I want you to think about one change that you're trying to make, whether it's something that you've been working on over the last couple of weeks with the last several episodes that we've talked about, or maybe something new that came to mind this week as we were talking. Think about one little change that you can make and how you're going to implement these things that we've been talking about to make sure that that change is able to happen, and how you're going to overcome that resistance when it comes up for you. Focus on that this week and do some journaling about that resistance that's coming up for you so you can be more mindful about it and more intentional about addressing it head on and overcoming it with these skills that we talked about. Next week, we're going to talk all about how once you get that self momentum going, how you keep it going and use self-discipline to continue down that path towards success. I hinted at it a little bit today already about what momentum looks like and how that can happen with small changes, but we're going to go into that even more next week. So make sure you tune in for that. Quick reminder, if you got anything good from this episode today, or if there's someone that you thought of that would really enjoy listening to this episode, please do two things. One, give this episode a nice rating on the star rating or platform or whatever it is. If it's YouTube, give it a thumbs up. If it's on the podcast, give the show a good rating. And two, share it with somebody who would benefit from listening to it as well. Those are two of the best things that you can do to help me grow this podcast and get the word out about it. Also, if you have a question that you want me to answer on the show in future episodes, please feel free to send it to me at heartandhealthpodcast@gmail.com. And I'd love to be able to respond to some of those questions. Obviously, I'll keep you anonymous and be able to share my thoughts as a therapist on whatever it is that you might be going through. It could certainly be related to biopsychosocial spiritual health in a kind of clear way, but it's also okay if it's not specific to that. But if you have something in mind that you want to have discussed on the channel or on the show, please let me know in an email and I'm happy to respond to that. All right, and one more reminder, if you have not already, please remember to register for the Reset, Reflect, and Recharge workshop we're hosting at the end of March 28th, to kind of go over what you experienced in quarter one and how you can best set yourself up for quarter two. So this is a totally free live workshop. It'll be at noon on Friday 28th, and we're limiting it to 10 spots because I want it to be nice and intimate, where we can really talk about what your experience has been and how I can help you on that road. And so there's a link at the bottom of the show notes or down below in the description. Go ahead and click on that. It'll take you to a registration page that you can fill out that information. And then I will be sending you info with the link for the virtual event closer to the date. But go ahead and do that. I have announced it to a broader audience at this point, so I expect those spots will fill up quickly, especially since this is a totally free workshop. So if you want to claim your space, go ahead and do that. I think we have 8 spots left at the time of recording this episode. So what you'll get from that: one, we're going to assess your BPSS well-being using a very simple guided framework. 2, identify small but powerful changes that you're going to be able to make to create that lasting impact in your health, in your mindset, and in your relationships. 3, we're going to overcome some of those common roadblocks that you might be experiencing, and you can certainly share with me in that workshop what those are, and we'll brainstorm together how you can overcome those. And then 4, you're going to leave with a very personalized action plan for you to take the successes that you experienced in quarter 1 and continue those into quarter. Just know that it's going to be a great experience, a nice way to reflect and reset, and it's going to be a fun thing for us to do. And this is just my way of giving back to the community that's helped me get this started. So go ahead and reserve your spot for that today and get that in the link down below. Alrighty, and that is all I have for you. Thank you so much for tuning in. Take care of yourself, and until next time, be well.